Hello, I'm Pamela Osborne, Director of Admissions at the University of Louisville School of Medicine. I would like to talk with you today about the process at the University of Louisville School of Medicine. Once you've decided and you've gone through your undergrad, and usually what happens in the second semester of your junior year, you're ready to take that MCAT. The MCAT's offered 20 plus times during that year. It's always best to take it when you feel best prepared. That means that you've had at least 4 weeks, maybe sometimes 6 weeks to prepare for that exam. Some schools will even offer you an opportunity to go through a class prior to taking that exam. But you should have a plan, and you should be prepared to study at least 4 to 6 weeks in order to do well on the MCAT exam. So you can take it in January. I think the latest dates are in September, and they're sprinkled throughout the summer. I would advise candidates most often, if they want to be early in the process, to have that exam taken by no later than the 1st of July. And that's because it takes AMCAS about 4 weeks to get the application results back to you. So if you take it early July, you're going to have your scores early in August. And that's a good thing at the University of Louisville School of Medicine, because that's when we start interviewing. And it's always good to be early in the process, but you want to make sure you're in the process, even if you have to have a late interview. And our interviews usually end sometime in February. So you just want to make sure you're in there. In evaluating applications from AMCAS, sometime in mid-May, they will give you an opportunity to go in and start filling out that AMCAS application. I would advise that you have an unofficial transcript with you at that time. The unofficial transcript, you'll take the courses and your grades and transfer them right onto the AMCAS application. And that's going to make their verification process a whole lot easier for you. That verification process is simply them checking to make sure that you have all the classes correctly listed from your transcript onto your AMCAS application. Well, at the beginning of June, you'll have an opportunity to submit the application, but sometime around the end of June, because it takes them about 4 weeks, schools will be receiving that application. AMCAS will start transmitting them to us. So just know that end of June, early July, some of you will be verified. That means that they will have had an opportunity to go through that verification process with your file. Some will be unverified. So the unverified applications, if we receive them here at the University of Louisville School of Medicine, we put them in kind of a suspense status until your application is verified. And then once it's verified, we begin our review. We like to let candidates know that we do a holistic review here at the University of Louisville School of Medicine. Yes, the most important aspect of your file is academic viability. We want to make sure that you've done well academically, or at least are above a threshold that we know, based on the performance of our students in the past, that you're going to do well. Or at least you're going to be able to get through medical school in 4 years and not have a lot of academic difficulty. So we know what that GPA looks like, and we also know what that MCAT score looks like. For us, that GPA has to be above 3.0 at a minimum. If there's an undergraduate GPA that's below 3.0, you might want to consider post-bac work before you start your application process to medical school. But if your GPA, science GPA and overall GPA are above 3.0, just know that if it's more toward the 3.0 range, you're at risk. You're at risk for denial, even if your application has progressed through the cycle. You're at risk for not being competitive in the process. So the closer to the average, which for us at the University of Louisville School of Medicine is 3.6, the better off you're going to be. But also know that we're not just going to look at a number and not look at how you achieve that number. If you're a candidate that started off slowly in your freshman year and didn't do as well as you thought because you partied a little bit too much, or you were adjusting to college and the independence that college brings, and you didn't do as well as you could, but in your sophomore year and in your junior year, you began to perform at a competitive level, the results may be that your GPA is a little bit lower than you'd like, but we'll see that you improved over time, and that's important to us. So just the grade progression, not just the final grade. If you're at the low end, that's important to us. The MCAT score, the average MCAT score that of the first class we admitted that took the 2015 exam was about a 507. So just know that our threshold there for Kentucky residents, just to get the secondary, would be about a 498. But that's a threshold. Just know that you want to be your most competitive, and your most competitive is going to be somewhere close to the average or above. Once your application's been screened and we've looked at what you've done academically, all those things that in a previous video that Ms. Coffey talked with you about exposure opportunities, shadowing, all the things that you've done outside of the classroom really become very important, because that's what our interview is predicated upon. We will do an academically blinded interview. So if we invite you to interview, what's going to be important that day is how you invested yourself outside of the classroom. And you should be prepared to talk about it. It's a day to brag about yourself. Most of us think that, we don't brag about, but this is the day to talk about how you prepared yourself outside of the classroom for medicine. And so it'll be a mixture. Everybody will bring something different to the table. We're not looking for cookie cutter applicants. Some applicants will have more research, then they'll have volunteerism. Some applicants will have a little bit more global bent to their extracurricular activities. But you should, over time, start early, sophomore year, freshman year, doing something that helps you outside of the classroom validate your call to medicine. And I do say call because that's what's important to our committee, is that you feel called to medicine and not just think that medicine is a good career, but you feel like this is the career you're called to do. Also, as a part of our interview process, we're going to ask you to do what we call an interpersonal attributes assessment. And that's where the candidates that come in on a given day are broken off into teams. And we'll give them a team exercise that's evaluated by our standardized patients in our standardized patient clinic. That's a variation to try to observe your team building skills and how you interact in a group. And that goes along with the 2 interviews that you'll have with admissions committee members that are about 20 and 30 minutes apiece. Just know that schools will differ. There will be some schools that will offer you interviews. You'll have one interview maybe with a faculty member, one interview with a student. There are some schools that will offer you what they call the multiple mini interview process. And that's where they give you a question and you change stations, anywhere from 8 to 10 stations, and they give you 3 minutes to answer a question. So the interview process could vary from school to school, but the key for you is that you know yourself, you know why you're doing this, and you are able to sit down and talk about what you learned from the things that you've thought about on this journey to medicine and the things that you've encountered and how you feel about them. So you know yourself better than any interviewer does. Just be able to communicate that, and I think you'll do well. But if you have any questions about the process here at the University of Louisville School of Medicine, we have a service account. You can send those questions to our service account. It's medadm@louisville.edu. And we will try to address any concerns that you have or questions that you might have along this process. Thank you again.